Hey guys, welcome to Get Busy Watching. I'm your host, Honest Dan. Let's talk movies. Doing a rapid fire this week, so let's hit it. Damn. January was a death sentence for horror flicks, but it's been treating others quite nicely. It's good, although it may not be telling the story in the right way. Let me start with the positives. The acting is phenomenal from the supporting cast. Ed Harris, Sam Jackson, William Hurt, and Peter Fonda, God rest his soul, all had their fair share of moments that made me choke up. And yes, cry. The film does a remarkable job of portraying different forms of PTSD and the general struggles of living with surviving combat where your friends and brothers in arms did not. Don't forget your box of tissues. And also, this movie does a beautiful job of paying respect not just to William Pitzenberger that this movie is based on, but to all who served in the armed forces, retired or active. I think this particularly hit home for me because I had an uncle and I have a pair of family friends that I've known nearly all my life who also fought in Vietnam. So I couldn't help but in the last few minutes of this movie feel like they too were being honored. Sure, in a peripheral kind of way, but it meant more to me than I thought it would. The problem with the movie is that maybe it gets a little too disjointed and focuses a little too much on the supporting characters rather than the actual story. I understand that the point was to provide context of Pitts' actions by giving us the flashback scenes and how his heroism saved the lives of these men. The problem is that it's not telling us any new information. From different perspectives, sure, but they do little to add to the overall narrative. As a result, perhaps the second half of the story, Scott Huffman trying to get Pitts his Medal of Honor, feels a little too slow-paced. We don't see enough of the resistance he faced in getting it, other than a shoehorned bad guy in the final 20-some-odd minutes. I feel like there was a way to balance out the two stories, but ultimately it just didn't feel like it gelled together very well. Overall, despite its somewhat jumbled narrative, it's still a powerful film in its own right, with heart-wrenching performances and respectable intentions. I highly recommend checking this out. My honest rating for The Last Full Measure, a strong 4 out of 5.
I have a family!
Faster!
I just do data entry!
Here's what I liked. The acting. Mackenzie Davis, Finn Wolfhard, and young Brooklyn Prince are actually really good, and there's even some sweet moments between characters Kate and Flora. The chemistry and respective performances are never the problem here. But do you know what the problem is? The story. Sorry. That would imply that there is a character that has an arc, or has a problem and actively makes attempts to solve that problem. And there's none of that here. To be perfectly honest, this movie had a setup that I was actually kind of on board with and even wished other horror films would do. It was setting itself up like it was a mystery. 2 ghosts, 1 good, 1 bad, and it would be up to Kate to protect the children from the bad ghost while helping the good one. But that was clearly wild speculation, as the movie isn't even remotely close to that. Because that would be interesting. And no January-released horror film would dare tread that territory. Instead, it's your prototypical horror schlock. Scary scene, be traumatized, do nothing about it. Scary scene, be traumatized, do nothing about it. Rinse and repeat. There's also highly unlikable breaks in character, specifically from Kate. The movie hints that maybe Miles knows what's going on, but it's never made clear. And by the grace of God's eternal dickhole, that fucking ending. I've seen some god-awful endings in my day, but this, wow. I don't even know if I can call it an ending. That would imply that the story came to a close. But it would be easier to say that the movie just stops. Seriously, by the time the credits roll, I dare you not to say, what? Overall, it's shitty. Criminally good acting saves it, but the story is an anal fisting. Not recommended. My honest rating for The Turning, a 2 out of 5. The poster I have for it is likely not clear on what the title is. It's called REDOUBT. Summed up, it's supposed to be a modern retelling of Diana, the Roman goddess of the hunt and moon, while also replacing dialogue with interpretive dance. And it also takes place in Idaho. Yeah, that sentence alone probably tells you everything you need to know whether this is for you or not. Was it for me? Kinda. It's different, I give it credit. But it is a very auteur kind of film, you know? And yet, strangely, it doesn't feel that pretentious about it. It's weird. Make no mistake, this movie starts off slow as hell, to the point where I was fighting to stay awake. But as the story was beginning to unfold, I found myself rather engaged. Like maybe Diana was a professional, die-hard hunter, whereas her sisters, friends, lovers, I couldn't tell what their relationship was. But while she seemed like the tried and true hunter, cleaning her sidearms and rifles, doing the actual hunting, she also seemed isolated from the other two, who seemed like they were in their own little world, not really partaking in the hunt itself. Have this freedom to sleep together, bathe together, dance together. You definitely get a sense that there is a story being told here. My interpretation was that maybe Diana was a little jealous of the pair openly expressing themselves, showing a little insecurity, feeling left out, or judging them for not being true hunters. Maybe Diana's their protector. After all, the engraver does kind of perv out on these women at some point, and she fires some serious warning shots at the old fart. Speaking of old fart, this movie introduces me to my new favorite thing in the entire world. Electroplating engraving. Seriously, that was the coolest shit I've seen in a long ass time. Thank you, movie. Now I'm off to try and spend money on electroplating art. Probably not, because I'm broke as fuck, but I'm thinking about it, and it's the thought that counts, right? Hey, I'm a red-blooded Neanderthal of a moviegoer. I take to traditional storytelling. But I have to admit, this wasn't a bad experience. There's plenty to interpret, and I would definitely say that the more artistically minded might get more out of it than I did. If that's your baggage, though, I definitely recommend checking it out. But if this doesn't sound like something you're interested in, I don't think there's anything here that'll change your mind. My honest rating for REDOUBT, a 4 out of 5. Apology accepted for making Aladdin, you motherfucker. While I couldn't follow it at first, and maybe the movie gets a little full of itself, but as soon as the plot really kicks off, the details almost don't matter, as even those get pushed to the wayside in favor of what we actually want to see. A bunch of gangsters getting into wacky situations, including chasing teenagers for phones, bringing home a drug-addicted daughter to her wholesome parents, poisoning a drug lord in his own restaurant, and the most spectacular way to blackmail the chief editor of a newspaper company that I've seen ever. All the while being told in flashback by the ever-charming and ever-amazing Hugh Grant. Boy still got it. The only real issue with the movie is that, well, the ending is obvious. I won't give anything away, but the whole hook behind the story is how did these punks manage to find out where Mickey hid his super secret weed farms? And it makes sense who it is. It's not as shocking as the movie makes it out to be. Still, that's not the main takeaway. It's how the story is presented, like all Guy Ritchie films, and how we get from point A to point B. So if you've been missing his classic take on gangster films, you're in for a treat. My honest rating for The Gentleman, a strong 4 out of 5. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Hope to see you soon.